Live. Hey, Tori.
Oh, hey, Melissa.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, for everyone who's out there watching, this is Tori Cushing, the fabulous daughter of Annie Cushing, just one of them. Tori is a genius in digging through data and finding really great information, like in analytics. She also uses data visualization to show the most important metrics in like really pretty ways. She's a genius at Excel, and I told her I really suck at it. Really, really suck at it. And that other people do too. So if she could like break down for us some of the basics of Excel, that would be really great. So Tori, why don't you take it from here?
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to take you guys from just a data dump that I took from Authority Labs, from just like a capture, one of the dates of data from one of the domains that I'm tracking, and I'm just going to pretty it up. So I'm going to add in a table and a bar graph, and if you guys are still following along, then I'm going to add in a line graph on top of that, so it's going to look really super awesome. I'm going to start my screen sharing now so you can see that. Okay, so here's what you will be able to do by the end of the screencast. Super pretty stuff. We're going to start with just a raw data dump. So I took this straight from Authority Labs. And what I'm going to do to start off is when I start off with any kind of data dump, I take the data and I keep one version of it just completely the same without any changes. So I usually go ahead and make a copy. And I did this by just right-clicking on the tab and creating a copy. I'm going to move it to the end. And then I usually give this a more intuitive name. So on the other tab, you can see that I named it volume for April. But for you guys, I'm just going to say that this is the formatted data. Okay, so we're going to start by just adding in one more column to the left. I do this as kind of like a buffer to add some padding to the document. These are just kind of things that I do when I first open a document, and a quick little list of things to make it kind of prettier. So I did this by right-clicking on the A column and hitting Insert, which inserts the tab to the left. So I'm going to bump down the width a little bit, make it like a little bit smaller. I'm also going to do something that is huge for me, and that is taking away the grid lines. That's kind of a really big deal. It runs in the family. All the Cushings think that grid lines are really ugly. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the View tab. So before I was under Home, I'm going to go all the way over to the right under View, and right under the Show portion, there is a grid lines option. And so I'm going to deselect that. Okay, so next I'm going to delete this extra information here and just keep kind of like the more pertinent information. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to say that this is a ranking report for my domain, so which is brooklynswings.com. It's a swing dancing website. And I'm going to put in that it's for April 2014. One thing to keep in mind for this when you put in a date is that it automatically switches it to date format. Just a quick tip, what I like to do is go under Home and change this numbering format to text. So I just went under the Home tab and I changed this all the way down to the text option. Now what it does is converts it to a number. It went from a date to just text. So I'm just going to copy that back in and say that April 2014. That's just kind of a quick tip if you guys have ever had trouble switching from different formats, from dates to numbers to percentages. All those options are under the Home tab and under the number format over here. Okay, so I'm going to delete some of these columns in here. And what I'm going to do next is add in a table. So I'm going to do this by hitting Control and Shift. I'm going to press those down and hit the right arrow on my keyboard. This selects all that data it basically selects any data that is in the rows by hitting that. So I'm going to hit Control or hold down Control and Shift and hit the down arrow, and it's going to go to the last row of data in our series. So now I selected all of the keywords that I exported. You could also do this by just selecting this first column or this first keyword and just dragging it to select all of the data. I just did kind of a keyboard shortcut to make it a little faster. So next I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to insert a table. So right under this is the table option. So it's really just as simple as that. You select your data, and you go to the Insert tab, and you hit Table. Now, one thing that you want to remember is that my table has headers. So see these, the keywords, the tags, the Google, the volume, the type, those are all headers. So I'm going to select this little option right here, this little checkbox that says my table has headers, and just hit OK. Okay, so now it just added in a stock table. You can see that the formatting is blue right now, and because I'm with Authority Labs and I like to kind of brand my data, I'm going to switch it to orange. So I did this by going to the Design tab. So anytime you're in the table, this Design tab pops up. So when I'm just not selecting the table, it disappears. When I select or just click anywhere inside the table, this Design tab pops up. And it just gives you a whole bunch of different, basically, design options for your table. And I went under Table Styles, and I selected the orange one. It's my favorite. Okay, so next I'm going to delete columns that I don't need. I'm going to do this by right up here under the column, so under C or any of these columns, you can see that the little cursor, it may be hard to see it on your computers, but the little cursor turns from an X, this kind of like plus sign, to a down arrow. That means that I can select the entire column by hitting the down arrow and clicking on that column. So if I were to just try to select, so anytime you click under C or any of the different column letters, you can select an entire column. So I'm going to select an entire column, and I'm going to right click and hit delete, or you could hit the D key. I'm just not going to use tags right now, so I'm just going to delete that. I also have all the data, if I need it, in my raw data tab, so it's okay to delete it here. You can delete multiple columns by just clicking on this column and dragging your mouse all the way to the right. And I'm going to delete these columns here because I just don't need them. I'm also going to delete the type column. Okay, so now I just have the Google rankings, my keywords, and my volume data. Next, I'm going to filter or kind of order by Google's rankings. So to do this, there's a little option right here on your table for filtering. And it's this little drop-down icon, and you can select it and get all these different filtering options. So if you have like conditional formatting or something like that, you can filter your data by different types of numbers. You can filter it by coloring. You can filter it by a specific number. So if you're just looking for all the rankings that are, number 7 in the data series, this is really helpful if you have a website that's doing really, really well for one keyword and they're ranking number 1 for a specific keyword. Then this is really, really helpful for that. So I'm just going to sort by smallest to largest, which is just saying that I want to sort by keywords that are doing the best in Google right now for my domain. So I can see that Lindy Hop Classes is ranking number 3 in Google for my domain right now, which is really, really awesome. I'm also going to go down to the very bottom of this data series, and I can do this by either scrolling down, so like actually just scrolling, or I can hit the control down arrow, and that'll take me to the last number in that data series. So you can see that like the next option has nothing in it, which means that it's a blank cell. Excuse me. So hitting the control down arrow will just take you to the last number in that data series. I'm going to delete these rows because they don't have any Google ranking in them. So I'm just going to do this by clicking on, let me show this one more time. I'm going to do this by clicking on the row And just like how you had the option with the little down arrow for the column, you also have that same arrow for a row, and that selects the entire row. So if you can see here, you can do this by just scrolling over your row in Excel and dragging it down. And I can drag down and delete all of these rows. Just because they don't have Google rankings in them, so I just kind of don't care about that data right now. I'm also going to delete anything past the top 15, because that's just what I'm focusing on. So I'm going to focus on my top 15 keywords. Okay, so now I have my top 15 keywords for my domain, and I've been able to filter them by the Google rankings and view their volumes. So now we're going to move on to actually adding in a chart. One last thing, I'm going to bump up the size of this title, just because I like to have the title sizes just a little bit bigger. I'm also zoomed in so you guys can see more easily. So adding in a chart is super easy. It's a lot easier than you think it is. You can either select all the data and go to Insert, the Insert tab, and click on one of these charts, or you could just click anywhere in the table and then go to the Insert tab and click on one of these charts. So I'm going to click on the 2D charts, which is a clustered column chart. So I'm just inserting a column chart right now. And here we have just a very basic chart that shows our Google rankings and our volume. So it's really cool that we were able to make a chart, but at the same time, this doesn't really show what we need to show very well, because the Google rankings isn't supposed to be on the same scale as the volume. For Google, with your rankings, you want it to be that, the lower the number, the better, and with volume, the higher the number, the better. So what we want to do is move the Google rankings to a secondary axis. Now this sounds super complicated, but it's really, really not. What you're going to do is just click on the series. So you can do this by just finding one of these little columns and clicking on it. Okay, so from here, a really easy shortcut is to hit Control-1, and that's going to open up all your formatting for your chart. So I'm going to hit Control-1, and I get these series options. Now, if you're in Excel 2010 or even Excel 2007, you have the same options. They just show up in a dialog box in the center of your screen, as opposed to this little nifty pull-out that Excel 2013 has come with. So, but you get the same options. You're going to plot series on a secondary axis. Okay, so now it's getting even more confusing, I'm sure. But the last thing you're going to do is change the chart type. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to change the Google rankings to a line chart. And I did this by just going up in the Design tab and hitting the Change Chart Type. And under here, you can see that you have two options. You have your Google rankings and your volume. And you're going to change your Google rankings from a clustered column chart to a line chart. And you can already see that it's selected to be on a secondary axis. And then you're just going to hit OK. So now you have your data a lot more visualized. You can see that your Google rankings is lower for, which is better. It's kind of like a backwards way of thinking about it. But you can see that the Google ranking is the best for Lindy Hop classes, but it doesn't get the highest volume. So swing dancing in NYC gets a higher volume, but the ranking is right around 10 or 15. So really cool way of visualizing your data. I'm just going to do some last formatting things for this table. So I'm going to drag this out a little bit so you can see the keywords more easily. That way you can read them more easily. If you have them all like that, just looks weird. Like you really don't want your keywords to be like having your client turn his head to the, or his or her head to the left trying to read it. So you want to stretch out your chart so that they can, that your values can be read more easily. Okay, so after this, I'm going to keep up the same branding that I've had for my table. And I'm going to do this right under the design tab, and I'm going to change the colors. So I'm going to go with orange. And now I have 2 shades of orange, which is, okay. But I'm going to change the Google volume to blue. And to do this, the same way that I changed, I hopped it over to a secondary axis, you can open up the same dialog box by hitting Control-1 and getting the formatting. So I'm going to go under the little paint bucket. This is also in Excel 2010. You have a different option. Under formatting, you can change the color too. So I'm going to change the color to just light blue. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is add in an intuitive chart title, because you really don't want just chart title for your chart. You want something that actually describes your data. So I'm going to put in, I'm going to go ahead and put in Google rankings and volumes for Brooklyn Swings. Actually, I'm just going to say it's for April because I already have that the client's name is Brooklyn Swings in the title. Awesome. Okay. So there you have it. A really easy way to really develop a table and a custom column chart, which then we also added a line chart in on the secondary axis. And pretty much in no time at all. So now we're going to open up questions. If you guys have any questions for me, my Twitter handle is just @Tori Cushing. That's TORICUSHING. So you can tweet me with any of the questions. I'm going to be on for a little bit longer also to answer any of those. Woo, okay. And we're back to me. Hello.
Hey, Tori, good job.
What's that?
So you've got a couple of really nice comments on Twitter so far. I favored it for you. But, okay, so you made that look really easy. Is it that easy every time?
Yes, it's that easy. It takes practice for it to be that easy. But the steps are really that simple. And in my Excel 101 blog post, I went through all those steps over again, and in my Excel 102 blog post, all those steps are broken down in screenshots and GIFs, and I think even in a tutorial video. So if you guys want to learn more about that, that's all on the Authority Labs website. But yeah, it's pretty much that easy. It just takes a little bit of practice to be able to navigate more easily. But your best friends right now are pretty much the Home tab and the Insert tab.
Okay.
So,
I have another question for you. Have you ever tried to do this in Mac?
Yes, I have.
And what would you tell people if they're using Excel and Mac?
I'm sorry?
What would you tell them? Should they attempt this in the Mac or no?
No, I mean, like, I'm sorry that you're using Excel for Mac. Okay, so Excel for Mac has a lot less features. You can't do pivot charts. You can do pivot tables now, which is great. But a lot of the features are a little bit more limited. Of course, when you're first starting off in Excel, those features you really aren't going to notice for a while. Like, you're still going to be able to add in charts, add in tables, add in graphs. So it's not going to be too much. It's a little bit different. It takes a little bit more searching to find where things are. So it does have a little bit of a learning curve working with it, I would say. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. You're muted. I don't know if you're talking.
I'm muted, I'm sorry. Okay, so you and I were talking earlier. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You do like personal help and tutoring with people and troubleshooting?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Well, people can out to you at Tori Cushing on Twitter if they're interested?
Yep, definitely. It's by the hour, so if anybody has, tutorial questions, personal tutoring, interests, things like that, or even just like troubleshooting problems like that, then you can DM me on Twitter and we can talk about it and about my rates and everything like that.
Cool. And you're going to be doing one of these maybe like what, once a month, so people can learn from you?
Yep. Maybe even more. I mean, it's really up to the demand. Like if people want to, there's so much to learn with Excel, and I love diving into it. I'm like such a nerd about it. Like I'm even wearing like my Excel T-shirt right now. Like it's bad. So.
Okay. Well, we have one question for you from Renell Smith.
Okay.
He wants to know Google spreadsheets. Are these tips applicable? Sorry, blah, blah, blah. They're not, right? You can't do all this on Google spreadsheet, right?
You can and you can't. Google spreadsheets, they're an interesting beast to handle. I do like them to an extent. They don't have tables, which is really annoying. What you can do is you can filter, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of like just adding in a table. Let me see if I can pull up something really quick for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, so here's just a document that I have on my Google Drive. I run the swing dancing club at my school, and so here's how we keep track of our dances, our attendance at our dances, and different, like basically the monetary values from the dances and stuff like that. So I can still add in table-like structures. I use a lot more of the coloring for these. So you can see that I still deleted the grid lines, which I did this by going under the View tab and just deselecting grid lines. You can see how much uglier it is with the grid lines. Really, it makes a huge difference. So I'm going to deselect that again. I can also go ahead and filter these tables by just selecting the data and hitting the filter option right here, which is right over here in the right-hand side, or I can go under data and select filter. You still have data validation options, and you can still add in charts, but they're kind of they're almost like plugins. You can add in a chart right here, going under insert and selecting a chart. So you can still do what you need to do in Google Docs. It's just they're having a little bit of growing pains. They haven't been around as long as Excel, but it's still doable. They still have the same option here of putting one value on a secondary axis and using a cluster column chart. So all the options that I went over are just about the same to an extent. There are just some limitations to it. And I do like working in it because of the Google Drive option and just being able to access it anywhere, which is really cool, like accessing it from my phone. So yeah, I think Google Spreadsheets has a lot of potential, and I still use it a lot for, obviously, since I could just pull up a doc. I actually created a whole dashboard in there for the last agency I worked for, just where all the employees could enter in like their processes and like how far they were in different projects and stuff like that. And I used charts that updated with different formulas. So you can still use a whole bunch of the Excel potential, like the stuff that you do in Excel in Google Spreadsheets. I think the only thing that's like just a little bit odd is that they don't have tables. They just have a filtering option, which is interesting.
Wow. My Google Spreadsheets don't look like that. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. Thanks so much. This is amazing. So far, feedback is really great.
Oh, no, it's definitely my pleasure.
Now you can see how 101 we really are, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys are doing great. You'll get there.
Right. One day we'll be halfway to Cushing level, right?
All right. Well, I'll hold your hand through it. It'll be fine.
Okay, cool. And you're going to be writing on the Authority Labs blog this summer. Do you know what you're going to be writing about? Yet?
I'm going to be continuing. Yeah, I'm going to be continuing the Excel 101 series. Also going into, there's been some talk about doing some Google Analytics 101. That's kind of been an idea on my mind. So just kind of like people who are really intimidated by these programs and by going into these interfaces, because they are intimidating. You know, like stepping into the world of data is an intimidating first step. So I think that's kind of what I would like to do, is just kind of take people's hands and like, it's not that scary. It's right here. We can do it together.
Okay.
Yeah. So things like that, kind of helping beginners, because I feel like a lot of beginner marketers don't have a lot of resources right now. So kind of helping people out, and people who aren't necessarily beginner marketers. They could be marketers, wonderful marketers, who are just beginners in this one area. You know, like data visualization stuff or analytics stuff, that kind of thing, which is totally understandable.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And you'll have some tweets on there, and I don't see that Brian's talking at all. So, but we really enjoyed it and learned a lot. And so, thanks for everyone that's watching, and keep check back with us every 2 weeks. We're gonna have hangouts every 2 weeks, I believe. So, thanks a lot, Tori.
No, thank you. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Thanks, Brian, for all your big words. Okay.
Keep up the good work.
All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.